Hi there. My name is Costanza Tedesco, and I manage the brand of SAP globally. I've had the privilege of doing that for about 12 years now. And one of the things I love is telling stories with data. You know, I noticed in the program that somehow this presentation got named Data, the Ubiquitous Force. And that sounded really cosmic to me. I don't really know what that means, and that's not what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm going to be talking about telling stories with data. So the reason I got into this is kind of combines two of my personal passions. I've always been very engaged with visual creativity. I love using art and design to express things. So I actually started out my career in the fashion industry. I went from there to advertising, so that's the stuff I love. But the thing that people don't expect about me is that I'm actually a hidden data geek. I was actually trained in economics and in econometrics at Princeton University and later at Harvard Business School, and I love geeking out with data and finding insights, but I found a lot of times that I'd see things and I'd try to tell others and they just couldn't get what the hell I was talking about. So I kind of made it my business to figure out how can I combine both sides and get better at telling stories with data. And particularly at SAP, that's what we do. We show our customers the insights that lie within their data. And so this became a skill that we wanted to develop within the company. So I'd like to just share with you kind of some of the best practices that we've developed at SAP, why we think telling stories through data is important, what are some of the best practices that we've developed, and I'm going to take you through some real-life examples of how we did it ourselves. So, first of all, why do we even care about telling stories around data? Well, the fact is, data can be confusing. This is a real-life chart from our company. I'm sure you all have seen things like it. It's really hard to tell what you're supposed to see. I mean, there are 5 columns of numbers. There should be, it's not really projecting, but 3 different colors. There's a green band that doesn't seem to be showing. There's purple, there's yellow, there's some numbers highlighted. They're highlighted in different colors. What are you supposed to get out of it? And if you think about it, a lot of times you're presenting, charts like this to executives or to customers or to clients, and you're expecting them to make a decision on the spot. But it's really hard for them to tell what it is you want to tell them. Here's another example, and again, real SAP chart. But again, I think you're going to find, these things look familiar. And there's a lot going on. There's a funnel thing happening, and then there's an arrow, and then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's lots of text, and there are lots of numbers, but it's really hard to tell what's important. And then there's another arrow, and then it goes to a 3D button. Well, what am I supposed to do? Can I push that button? Is it going to do something? No. There's a lot of stuff going on in our desire to be thorough and our desire to make things look finished. We actually confuse more than we and distract more than we really illuminate. Or here's another one. This is the kind of chart that just freezes my brain. Again, it's thorough. It's complete. There is not a single fact that isn't there. But, oh my God, there are red bands and blue bands and purple bands and diamonds, and some of the diamonds are yellow and some of them are blue. And so this is what we don't want to do. But what I'd like to show you are some of the examples of how data can be used to really engage your audience, to attract them, to pull them in, and to really tell a story. So here's what I think is a great inspiring example. This is a man named Hans Rosling. He is a Swedish medical doctor, academic, statistician. He's one of the founders of Doctors Without Borders, and he really believes in using data in a way that engages and tells stories. So if you'll let me, I'm just going to play this video for you.
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health. And I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew.
So, here we go. First, an axis for health. Life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth, income per person, $400, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago, in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubble showed the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only the UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, why start the world? The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe! And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1940.
So there's more where that comes from, and I invite you to go check it out on YouTube. It goes all the way to the present day. But again, imagine if you tried to show 200 years of data on lifespan and income through a series of Excel charts. You'd be, stultified. But he draws you in and tells a story that is really vibrant and very relevant. So let's talk about how you can get there. So some of the best practices, and again, best practice is a very formal word. These are some of the things that we've learned and that we do at SAP, and hopefully they'll be helpful for you as well. And, again, this is what we do at SAP, but you don't have to necessarily take our word for it. There are plenty of practitioners in the area of data visualization that use these types of approaches. So Harvard Business Review would be one, Wall Street Journal would be another. So we've developed 4 principles, and I'm going to take you through those one by one. The first principle, focus on one idea. Again, we have a tendency to sort of want to be very complete and very thorough. But in the end, burying information in information overload hides the very insights that you want to show. The other is to think about, what's the right format to use for a clear message. To think about what's the story you want to tell and design from that. So, we found that when you think about data, there's really kind of 2 types of stories you want to tell. The first is comparison data, where you want to compare one value against another. So that could be in terms of a ranking. And in that case, bar charts are a very clear way of doing that. Or they could be kind of benchmarking, where you show, where you started, what your target is, where you are in between, where you exist in the range. And if you think about, which of those are you trying to do, then it becomes really clear how do you use graphics to tell that story. And again, what we've done here, besides focusing on one idea, is to try to then use that opportunity to simplify. So bar charts. If you are focusing on one idea, then you have the opportunity to change the order of the comparison. You can take it out of the form that you might have, received it in the analysis and put it in the order that makes sense for the story you want to tell. So largest bar on the top. Simple shapes, a lot of white space. Let the graphics tell the story. You can take out then the labels. And if you use them inside the graphic so that they really speak to at a glance. And we'll talk more about this in a second. So that's comparison content. The other kind of data stories we want to tell are just simple statements. There's a number that we want to share. But the key is not to share just a number, but to make it relevant and use design and graphics to make that relevant. So a good way to do that is through pictographs. So we have a stat of the number of utility companies that run SAP, but we balance that with a pictograph around utility so you can immediately see it and get it. Or sometimes it's good to, not just show a number like 50%, but illustrate what does that mean volume-wise. So using the small pictographs, you can see at a glance what 50% means, or what 75% means, or what 10% means. Again, we've applied some of the same principles. We use color in a very focused way. We use simple shapes. We've balanced the size of the type with the graphics so that the content really stands out. And again, tried to make it really simple for a lot of dramatic impact. So we started out by trying to focus on one idea. The next step is establish your structure in your hierarchy. One thing I found is people have the tendency to go straight to PowerPoint and start, putting stuff on, and then only later do they kind of worry about organizing it. And I would say, I guess I'm old school, but a pad and a pencil are your best friends. Take the time to really sketch it out. Sketch out the story that you want to tell from the very beginning. And think about those relationships. Think about, okay, what really is the story that I need to tell? What goes on the page? What are the relationship between the pieces? How does the story flow? Does it flow from top to bottom? Does it flow from left to right? Is it about the center going outward? How do you tell that story? And then how do the pieces fit together? So what are the graphical forms that you want to use? And then really ask yourself, is this one point? Does it all fit on one slide, or is it maybe a couple of points that need to be broken up? So if you've thought about then, you've sketched out the structure, then think about your different options for illustrating it. And it's important to always remember that you have a whole graphical toolbox at your disposal. And you don't have to, a lot of times I think we feel, classical presentation of data, you want to present it the same way on every slide, but you're presenting different insights on every slide. And so use your toolbox. So, we talked about pictographs for, presenting statement content. If you want to show parts of a whole, then, pie graphs do that. We like to use the donut just because, because we like to be contrary, but it's elegant looking and you can see those relationships. We talked about bar graphs for comparison. But, sometimes you do want to show trends. So line graphs are the way to do that. Just be willing to simplify. Only put on there what you need to put on there, and let the shapes speak for themselves. And the last is, tables aren't bad. Sometimes a table is the best way to get across information. But again, challenge yourself to simplify it to only those elements that really highlight the story that you want to tell. So focus on one idea. We thought about our structure and hierarchy. The next guidance that I can give is keep it simple. My fashion background, I've always admired Coco Chanel, and I don't know if this anecdote is really true, but it's certainly attributed to her, that she says, if you want to be really chic, get dressed in the morning, look in the mirror, and take one thing off. And we try to apply the same thing here, which is when you've presented a visualization, think hard about what you really need. And keeping it simple can actually make it more dramatic and impactful. So give yourself plenty of white space. If you have white space, then you allow the shapes to really speak, and the relationships between the shapes become then apparent. Don't crowd the page. Try not to mix graphic styles. One simple graphic style will get your point across. And be limited in your use of color. A single color balanced against neutral, or a single family of colors, can actually tell a story more clearly than using a lot of crazy color coding. In the end, it comes down to, we call it chart junk. It's all the things that we do to kind of make our charts look fancier, but they actually don't help. They actually kind of all make it distracting. So, thinking about, grid lines. We always put grid lines in our bar charts. Do you need them? Because most of the time you don't. The sizes and the shapes can speak for themselves, and you can put, a label inside that gives your numbers. To that point, try to eliminate what labels you can. Embed those labels into the graphic, but don't have them floating off into space. All the stuff that PowerPoint allows us to do, like drop shadow, 3D, gradations, lots of colors, again, they only make things more confusing. They don't really let the simple shapes and relationships follow through. So again, resist the temptation to have all that noise and see how reductive you can be. Same goes with colors. If you have an elaborate color scheme, then your audience is left wondering, what color means what. If you just focus on, there's color where I want to make a point, there's no color where you don't, there's no point to be made, then people can immediately see what they're supposed to see. And then type, again, restrict yourself to, a single type of type, no more than 3 weights, again, really try and keep it simple. But the last key, okay, we've focused, we know what we want to say, we've done what we have to make it simple. The leap to real storytelling is making it relevant. So presenting not just a number, but contextualizing in a way that people can relate to the story that you're going to tell. So the pictographs can be a good way to do that. Here's something that we do at SAP. We do a lot in the area of sports analytics. So we have a partnership with the National Basketball Association in the US, and all of their player data all through the years is available on SAP HANA. Anybody can crunch it in any way that they want. So we wanted to present those player stats, and you could do that in a really dry way. You could have the name, you could have, the numbers, but we wanted to hook into the passion that people have for sports and passion for the particular player that they follow. So we use their pictures. We make sure that the comparisons are easy to read. You can compare against each other. And this really becomes, it taps into the passion that the fan has. And that's a way of real storytelling. So with these 4 guidelines, I'm going to just take you through some, real examples. And, there's no pride here. We're, to show the stuff that, that happens in every company. And these are real, but I want to show you a little bit kind of the before or after. So you remember this one. Again, we've all seen it before. Didn't know where to look. There lots of information. It turns out when we actually talked to the people that made this chart that there was one story that they wanted to tell. This was about data about one of our events, and particularly the executives were interested in 2 areas that we particularly wanted to promote: analytics and cloud. And so what they wanted to talk about is how, what kind of attendance and response did we get in those 2 areas? It's lost here. So this is what we did. Again, the things that the executives wanted to hear about, that's in color. You can immediately see in analytics, yes, we actually beat our targets. In cloud, not so, we didn't do so well. The colors are clear. The story is crystal clear. And the structure is based on what we wanted to do, comparison. And we've simplified. We got rid of all the junk, but actually we haven't lost any data. Everything that the previous chart had is actually presented here, but it's presented in a way that's focused for the viewer. Or this one, which you saw. Again, we approached this, and this was the result. So again, focusing on one idea. We made some hard choices. There were like 6 different ideas here. And we said, okay, we're going to focus on the 3 most important. We thought about the structure. So what did we want it to say? We wanted to focus on 3 important points as statements. So we let them come out and sing. We used pictographs to contextualize them. We simplified by using bold graphics, bold numbers, and got rid of all the junk. And it tells a stronger story. But this one, my favorite, it kind of speaks for itself. It's just proof that less is more. Again, this has all the information you need, but it's a whole lot more attractive, and it's a whole lot more usable. I mean, I don't know about you, but like these kind of charts make me want to run in the other direction. But this is the kind of one that you want to hang on your bulletin board and use. Here's another example. I don't know if this is so easy to see, but this was a piece of sales collateral that was very popular with our sales team, and it was called the Top 10 Reasons to Choose SAP. Overall kind of compendium that you could give to a new customer that explains, the top 10 reasons why we're the best. It was a 40-page document, 40 pages of long text, complicated charts, and we said, well, if there are 10 reasons, you should be able to say that in 10 pages. And we boiled it down and boiled it down and boiled it down and said, for each of those 10 points, what are the facts that are most important? How can we present that in a really simple, graphic way? And you can get this story at a glance. And so, honestly, we were probably fooling ourselves that, our customers wanted to wade through 40 pages to understand why we were better. But this is a good way of telling that story. Here's another example, and again, this is something that we see all the time. Bullet points. Yeah, it's clear. This is the information that we want to tell. But how much easier is it? How much more impactful when you tell it this way? So, if I can get the computer to work, I want to show you what I think is like a great demonstration of kind of where this can go. And this is, okay, this is not something that we did. It was done for Facebook by a company called Stamen Design, okay, that is worth checking out. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But it's a similar kind of relationship that shows how Facebook friendships happen around the world and the connections. And so the size of the bubble represents, where the friendships are, and you can click on any bubble and see the friendships that relate. And here's just an example of India. So you see where the Facebook friendships are. And immediately this tells a story of language, culture, immigration, etc. So, and there are a million stories in this. I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to show it to you. So that's my story. I hope that this has helped think about, how you can tell stories with data, why that's important. Again, we talked about these best practices, focus, thinking about your structure and hierarchy, using your toolbox, keeping it simple, and making it relevant. So hopefully that has inspired you. I'd love to answer any questions that there might have. And again, what I hope that you can wrestle things like this and turn it into great storytelling, and really let data strut its stuff. Thank you.